Good day to be together. Welcome all locations, everybody. East, West, fellows at RCMU. We're going to dive into a very specific topic. In fact, this is just a one-week conversation I want to have with you because we as a church are walking into what we call Love Week, and I think it's important that we even know why we're doing what we're doing. And so listen, about 500 years ago, a painter decided to, at that time, paint a whole series of paintings that would show and demonstrate what kids used to do when they would play, like different games, just what they would spend their days doing. One of them was a girl playing with a doll, and that was the painting. Another one, some boys spinning those tops to at the point, just seeing how long they could spin them. There were tons of them. One of them was even playing on a fence and all that. One of them was called Dethroning the King. That was the game they played. Now, let me show you the painting. Okay, you may not love the painting. It's maybe whatever. But what the game was is a kid would start at the top of a hill, and everyone else's job was to remove that kid from the hill. Yeah, you and I would call this king of the hill. Here's the rules. If you don't know, these are the ancient rules. King is the person that was the first to get on the hill right at the very beginning. So it was a race at first. To become king, you needed to stay up on the hill and push any other king off. At the end, the last king standing is the winner, right? King of the hill. I remember playing this when it would snow and the plows would pile up everything. We would play King of the Hill on top of a big giant pile of snow, or maybe just regular outside the playground. You probably played it, or at least thought about it, or wondered why other kids were playing it. It's a bit intense. But little did we know growing up. Little did we know that this whole idea of King of the Hill, like that, this pretty raw game, would become a way that many of us actually live our lives. Many of us actually, although it used to be a game, now we're actually looking at our life, looking at how we're assembling what we want to do in life, and thinking King of the Hill, not letting others have what we want, and having a bit of an agenda to it. In fact, if you walk this whole King of the Hill life out, it brings up a common phrase: is this a hill you want to die on? You can trace this statement back to ancient history. Some would say it's a military expression. The idea that what you're fighting for, what you're giving your life to, like what you're spending all your major energy on, is it worth it? I think you ought to think about that. I think we all ought to. That what we're giving our lives to, like what we're saying, I'm spending money on this, I'm spending time on this, I'm spending all this mental energy on this. Is it a hill you want to die on? Is it something you're worth like spending your life on? Is it something that valuable? So if we take this and even go straight into our own lives, a very, very personal question. What's your hill? I mean, if you had to right now, and let me just challenge you to do it. If you had to decide like what you're currently giving your life to, like I'm talking about if you summed up all your bank account, your energy, all if you like, okay, and you had to lock on, here's the one thing, here's the hill I'm going after, I'm defending, what would be your hill? And is it something that you're proud of? Is it something that has, I would call it, value that goes beyond just your own life? Is it something that is helpful? Is it something that's pure? I know many of us might be like, well, yeah, of course it is. It's my hill is parenting, or my hill is marriage, or it's a job. But I want you to at least process it, because I think this is a big deal. Because what you give your life to, well, we only get one life. That's a big deal. What's your hill? There's a story, a moment where if we open up the Bible and we see in the life of Jesus, where someone approached Jesus and their hill was really obvious. Let me show this to you. Then the mother of James and John, disciples, the sons of Zebedee, came to Jesus with her sons. She knelt respectfully to ask a favor. What is your request, he asked. Now, I wanted to just show you this first part because you got a mom, okay? You're reading this. You got a mom with her two boys who are currently following Jesus, and they all know about Jesus, love Jesus. And mom approaches Jesus respectfully, kneels down, but don't miss it's Jesus. And Jesus even says, what is your request? Have you ever thought about if you had that opportunity to be physically in the presence of the Son of God, right? Of the Son of God, you're in His presence, and you kneel down, and He says to you, what's your request? I mean, some of us would be like, what's my request? And you'd be like, I'm a Vikings fan. I'd like for them to win the Super Bowl. And Jesus would say, that's not possible. I can't do that for you, right? No. But think about, would you ask something that would be for you? Would it be for someone else? Would it be material-wise? Would it be emotional? Would it be healing? Would it be money filling your bank account? Would it be for world peace? What would you ask if the Son of God was looking you in your eyes and said, what is your request? Because your request reveals your hill. It reveals what you're living your life for. It's important to know that. So let's finish this. She replied, what's my request? In your kingdom, please let my two sons sit in places of honor next to you. One on your right and the other on your left. Now that's important. If you don't know this about who sits to the right and the left, the immediate right and the immediate left of the one who runs the kingdom, the king, right? It's a big deal. Power and prestige. Honor. That's what she's talking to Jesus and saying, the hill that I want to die on, the hill that I want to stand on and defend on, is I want my sons to live eternity with power and prestige. Not just now, but, and some of you are like, I'm not sure that's like a very nice thing to ask. I mean, in fact, I think it does reveal when you and I are processing what you're going to spend your life on, I think you enter a fork in the road. We just saw the mom face it. We just saw her have to decide what am I going to die for? What am I going to live for? It takes you to a fork in the road. Let me show you the fork in the road regarding decision-making, life, spending your life. You either go down the self-gratification road or you go down the self-sacrifice road. It really is this simple. When you're looking at what you're going to spend your life on, your days on, your weeks on, what you're going to give your life toward, it's either going to gratify yourself, which, if you want to know, that's what mom was going after. She wanted her boys to have this honor because it would reflect on her as well and them. That's what she wanted, but it was a bit self-gratification. It definitely wasn't self-sacrifice. And we need to go after this. I want to talk to you about self-gratification because I think there are dangers in self-gratification if it stays consistent. If what you do with your day and your night is so full of gratifying yourself, I think it begins to turn into things that you didn't want it to turn into. This self-gratification begins to turn into immediate gratification because it's not just like, here's what I want. It's here's what I want, and I want it right now. But just watch, the world that we live in right now is helping you and I become this self-gratifying, immediate gratifying kind of people. Here's some examples, basic examples. There was a day that if you watch TV, a favorite TV show, you would watch it, and the next episode you had to wait until next week on the same day and time to watch it. Netflix helped change the game to where you can watch a whole season of your favorite show without commercials, and in one day if you decide to binge watch it. Amazon has, I think, changed the game where You can have something you want, and not only do you order it, and the old way was like, in 2 to 4 weeks, what you've ordered will arrive. That was the old. No, now it's like, you want it? Tomorrow you can have it. In fact, a lot of retailers are changing their whole entire strategy about shipping, trying to figure out how to get you and I what we want faster, because we are demanding that it arrive faster. And then restaurants are now in the game. Or why would you show up to a restaurant and have to order your food and wait for it? Now with an app, you can order your whole thing, pay for it all, show up to the restaurant, sit down, and they just bring it to you, and it's immediate. I'm not saying these things are horrible or evil at all. I'm saying they're an indicator. They're an indicator that you and I are leading our lives with demands. And retailers, for the sake of making some money, are meeting those demands. The problem is if you live this demand-oriented, immediate gratification kind of lifestyle, it leaks into all of these other avenues of life where you're a parent and you begin to look at the principal of your kid and the teacher of your kid, and you treat them not like they're a person, but that you demand that they do everything you want them to do. You show up to a place that you're shopping, and they don't exist as an opportunity or people or legitimate, just real human beings. You're there to demand, I want this, and we treat people like they aren't even people. How about God? Can we admit that many of us right now don't treat God like He's God, the almighty sovereign God? We treat Him like He exists to make our lives what we want our lives to be. The hill you're going after, there's some dangers in it. And here's what I'll tell you, one of the dangers: consistent self-gratification makes selfishness hard to resist. Consistent self-gratification makes selfishness hard to resist. In fact, there's a story. It's an old story, but let me connect some newness to the old story. If you've ever heard of the marshmallow test, the marshmallow test was where they put kids in this room and they gave them a marshmallow and they said, hey, you can eat that if you want, but if you wait until I come back, I'll bring you more marshmallows. And you can go on YouTube, and many people have duplicated this study, the marshmallow test. It's about, can you wait? Can you be patient? Can you not gratify yourself immediately? I don't really want to go into all of the whole study. It basically was, can you resist or can you wait? Can you show patience? What I wanted you to learn was they've tracked the people. See, this original thing was done in 1970, and they've continued to track the folks that did the study. And it's fascinating. Let me just tell you what the study revealed. After they've been following them, but here's the results. Those who waited, those who didn't just gobble up the marshmallows or demand, they were more likely to have higher SAT scores. They were more likely to get into colleges that were really good colleges. And in fact, the adult outcomes of the kids that said, I'll wait, turned out really good. In fact, here's some just very specific information. The CEO of YouTube, can we admit that they've achieved, they've done well, were one of the kids that resisted and waited. However, the kids that didn't resist, that went for self-gratification, they tracked them. Those kids were more likely to become bullies. The teacher and parental evaluations were far worse. And in fact, they said that by the time they got into their 30s, they were more likely to get involved into an addiction of some sort. Now, I'm not saying at all that if you had some sort of self-gratification moment, or as a kid you had it, and it was like, oh, now you're doomed for addiction. No, I'm saying if you don't deal with self-gratification, it will damage many things in your life, is what I'm saying. And you see, even with these kids, how early it starts. For those of you who are feeling bad, you're like, oh, no. It doesn't have to be tied. So early on, these kids early on began to deal and wrestle with self-gratification. And if you and I don't deal with this and say, you know what, maybe I shouldn't be so demanding all the time, demanding immediacy of everything, because it could go dark for you. Let's look at Jesus' responses as he walks this out. But Jesus answered by saying to them, the mom and the sons, right? You don't know what you're asking. This is funny, but also very serious. He's saying, you don't know the hill you're asking for. Are you able to drink from the bitter cup of suffering I'm about to drink? And of course, yes, we are able. Yes, we are able to do that. That's what self-gratification, immediate gratification does for us. We'd be like, yeah, I want it now, and sure, whatever requirements, yeah. Can you be open enough to say that many of the things that you and I crave and want may not be things that we can handle or frankly should even have? So their response of like, yeah, sure we can. I think it triggered something for Jesus and be like, all right, we need to have a little meeting here. So Jesus then says, all right. Disciples gather up. Important conversation. But Jesus called them together and said, you know that the rulers in this world lord it over their people, and officials flaunt their authority over those under them. But among you, it will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first among you must become your slave. Are you living this way right now? Or are you fighting for a hill that has a lot to do with you? Then Jesus says one of the most radical statements that you'll ever read that he said. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others, and to give his life as a ransom for many. The Son of Man, Jesus himself, comes to earth and does not grab a throne for himself. He grabbed, in essence, a towel. He grabbed a posture of serving people. He just took us back to the fork in the road. You remember that? Now, I don't know what you've been choosing. I don't know what direction you've been going. I mean, I showed you where the mom and her sons were kind of going towards the self-gratification. But Jesus just said, no. If you follow me, if you're about me, self-sacrifice. What you demand that you want, what you think you need, what you want to gratify right now, self-sacrifice. It's exactly what Jesus said. Jesus came and he was a ransom. Let me package this in a way that here's what I think he's telling us. If you're going to give your life to a hill, don't choose your own hill. Which does that not contradict many of the cravings that we have on a daily basis? Where if you're anything like me, I'll wake up oftentimes going, I got a hill and I can't wait to add something to it. It's typically about my hill, about what I want, what I'm assembling, what I'm piecing together. And Jesus is like, okay, here's what I did. I showed up and I didn't go after my hill. Have you ever thought about a lifestyle of not going after your own hill, but the hills of others? It's hard, frankly, because you and I think, have some natural things, natural cravings in us. One of the cravings is that you and I are like, wow, like not have my own hill, like, but will people see me? Will they know who I am? Well, because you and I are born with a need to be known. I'm not hating on it. In fact, I don't think that's a bad thing. We're made for relationship. God literally formed in you and I a craving for a relationship, which then gives you a craving to be known, to be seen. And for many of us, though, that craving to actually be acknowledged, to be like others to be aware of us, turns into something that I don't think we want it to turn into. To where if you're any kind of normal, you've had multiple days where you're upset. You go home, and it felt like no one saw you. Felt like no one acknowledged you for what you wanted, for what you accomplished, or just who you are. So now we live in a culture now who has decided that this need to be seen is primary. Listen, it's even become an objective. So let me tell you what you need to do. Resisting the need to be seen helps you to see others. If you've ever wondered, like, how do I not, like, make my life, how do I go after other people's hills and help them and do what Jesus said to do was to serve others, to be a slave even to others, to address their needs, you're going to have to resist the need to be seen. And some of you right now, you're like, well, what happens if I don't get seen then? Let me just ask, how's that been going for you already? How's that been working for you, your fight to be seen and acknowledged by others? Is it as satisfying as you thought it would be? Typically, most people would say no. There's another moment that Jesus, I think he addressed this. Let me show it to you, because I find it very profound. So now I'm giving you a new commandment. I mean, this is like heavy stuff here. Love each other. Just as I have loved you, you should love each other. Your love for one another will prove to the world that you are my disciples. Just as I have loved you, you should love each other. This all ties into what hill are you going after? Have you ever considered, would you consider helping others, loving others, making your life not about you and your demands and your wants, but about the needs of others? It's exactly what Jesus did. Have you considered loving others and not being all about yourself? Here, to do this well, to love Jesus well, love like Jesus. Love like Jesus. If you want, like, what's the application? Is love like Jesus. When you wake up, go through the people in your life or the people not even in your life now, love like Jesus. And Jesus, what he just told us, was sacrificial, was servant-like, slave-like. He offered himself. He didn't go after his own hill. It's he walked through the day aware of the needs of others, looking at the needs of others, being aware of their hills. That's how Jesus loved. And to love Jesus well, love like he did. Love like he did. I think it puts a very simple yet profound question on your side of the table. You have to ask yourself, do I care? If you're right now facing a tension right now, can I live selflessly? Can I live as a servant for other people? Can I actually look at and be aware of other people and their needs when I've got my own? That you're going to have to ask yourself, do you care? Do I care about people? And I know it sounds basic, but my observations right now in our world, our society, our culture, our region, our city, it's a far more profound question than I think we're giving it credit for. Do I actually care about other people? Do I actually care about anyone and everyone? Or do certain people have to believe what I believe, see life as I see it, do what I do, look like I look, in order for me to care about them? No, it should be, do I care about people, anyone and everyone? Do I? Years ago, I told a story that I think needs to be retold here. The story is about a guy named Father Damien. Father Damien went to an island in Hawaii. At first, you're like, island in Hawaii? I'd like that job. Well, the island was actually a quarantine zone. It's where people who had leprosy were put. It actually was a place that once you got on the island, you weren't really allowed or were supposed to leave. And the island was full of death, leprosy. If you don't know much about leprosy, basically you were going to die from it. And it was so contagious. Father Damien wanted people to know who Jesus is, and so he shows up. But how do you help people know who Jesus is who are contagious? It can make you die. What do? Do you stand from afar, maybe write some letters and then send it to them? And no, Father Damien integrated himself into the community. When he showed up, the community was jacked up. Like, chaos was everywhere because people there they were waiting to die. It was a place of death. There was no like thriving anything. It was just about death, which then led to chaos and people abusing each other, abusing themselves. It was mayhem. It was horrible. He shows up to show them who Jesus is. And he does something that you and I have something to learn from. He shows up and he goes to them. He gets around them. He doesn't from afar going, hey, someone should do something. One of the things he did that I find very moving, because people were dying nonstop on this island, he began to make coffins for them to give them dignity when they died. Best estimates, they say that he handmade over 2,000 coffins and helped people when they passed away to have a ceremony. I think that's incredible. He would often help even bandage their wounds for them because it was just ripping their skin apart. One day, after being there for a while, he got up to preach a sermon to them, and here's how he opened it up. Here's what he said, we lepers, we. You see, he had then locked into the, he had gotten leprosy while being there. He had gotten so close to them that what some of us would say would be our worst fear, it happened to him. But what's fascinating is it changed the whole island. Rather than being a place to die, it became a place to live. Father Damien cared. I know some of us can hear a story like that and we're like, I don't know if I'm willing to give my physical life for the needs of others. And maybe you do. Maybe you're at a point now that you're like, I don't know how to even begin to care about others. Here's what I'll tell you. If you struggle caring, start contributing. I think this is basic level. If you're like, I don't know if I care about others, I'm not sure if I do, or maybe you're certain right now, you're like, know what, I'm a pretty selfish person, full of immediate gratification, nonstop, and that's my life. You're like, how do I break out of this? You break out of it by starting to contribute, and that brings us to now. Listen to me very closely. We now launch this week what we call Love Week. You may not know much about Love Week. I'd like to tell you about it. I'll never forget being called by the director of the Red Cross here in the Rapid City area. He said, hey, will you come see me for a second? He told me the address he was at, went and showed up. He and I had become friends and just wanted to see what he was doing for work. And I showed up to a project they were working on in Rapid City. But what was interesting was the group of people helping him with the project were from a church. I believe the church was in Texas. I thought it was odd that a church from Texas would come all the way up to Rapid City, South Dakota to help people in Rapid City, South Dakota. And I asked them about this. And he said, oh yeah, churches from all over the nation come to Rapid City to help us out, to help people out. I got into my car, began to drive home, and I was wrecked. I was wrecked by the fact, well, you're telling me that I'm a pastor of a church in Rapid City where other churches are coming to the city that we're in to help people, well, then we better be a church in Rapid City that helps people in Rapid City. I know it sounds elementary, but it's fascinating that many of us look beyond our own areas and go maybe to Africa, which needs help, go to South America, which needs help, but we bypass and neglect our own area. And so we became a church from that point on that would make sure that if we're going to do mission trips, if we're going to send people across the globe, we're going to make sure that we send people to our own town. And Love Week started. It's a 1-week mission trip to our own region, where you stay in your house, you sleep where you sleep normally. But you and I do projects in the morning and in the evening. We go out into our community and we address real needs. We don't fundraise for this, by the way. It comes out of the church budget. When you give to the church, you're helping fuel Love Week. And it has now become a time of the year where typically about 1,000 or more people will gather together and go do projects all over the region, helping people know who Jesus is by engaging genuine needs. We have been a part of the school district. I think over 40 schools we've helped. We've been a part of nonprofit organizations, over 100 of them. We have been involved in people's homes. We have gone everywhere we can to help, and that's what we're doing this year. So here's what I'm calling you to do. Be a part of Love Week. Start contributing. If you can't find an hour or two to contribute, you need to back into that question I asked earlier. Do you care? If you're going to be gone this week, you can contribute financially to it. But church, let's stop talking a good game. Huh? Let's be a church that cares about others, that engages the needs of others, that fights for other people's hills. Because that's what Jesus told us to do. Let me pray for you. God, I ask that you would come upon us in a way that we get this. God, you know my own wrestlings with this. I've had many, many seasons of just being so selfish, being so consumed with my own hill, the thing I'm creating. And I think many of us are even there. Would you help us to care about other people's lives? Or would you do something with Love Week that doesn't give Fountain Springs Church a good name, but gives you a good name? God, would you assemble a massive group of people to disperse out to show people who you are, to love people well, to care for people well. God, I ask that you'll provide all of the money necessary for these projects. God, I ask that you would provide the people necessary to accomplish the projects. And God, I pray for the folks that we get to serve. God, would you do a work in their lives? Provide for them. Perhaps even answer the prayers that they've been crying out to you, asking, God, would you help us? We're going to be that help, God. Please use this week. We pray this in the name of Jesus. Amen.